It's
Yeah.
either MasterCard or Visa. That's
Well,
the
it's from what I heard, it's MasterCard. That's kind of like that they've implemented some new rules. And I know that Gumroad has completely banned not safe for work artists on their
mm.
platform. And Patreon has put out another like list of what you can or can't do on Patreon.
Oh boy.
But considering my experience with them, like the problem with a lot of these not safe for work restrictions, because depending on the platform, it's not an outright ban, is the fact that they're incredibly inconsistent with how
Well, they're
they.
very vague.
Yeah,
And it
it's
also, I
very.
think it
Yeah,
depends on the individual that is assesses said art,
yeah,
because that's one of
yeah,
the reasons why I won't go over to Rumble. Or well, there's several, but
right,
that's one of the main reasons. When we
right.
went and checked it out, I was like,
Hmm.
nah, not happening, because the
Yeah.
not safe for work policy, like, could be something as simple as a bikini, unless somebody
Well,
who's
that's
looking
what
at it
happened
says
to me
this
on
is fine.
Patreon. That's what happened to me on Patreon. It's like, okay, because what they didn't want, what they dinged me for, right, was that, yeah, for having adult content on an adult on an adult labeled account.
Right.
But I was like, the way I was censoring the artwork was supposedly against their policy, which I had no idea because that's not how I interpret it. Um, so
No
what
nip,
it
no slit.
Right.
You're
Well,
good to go, right?
no, you can't cover them. You can't just
Uh,
cover them. You can't have them. You can't have those pieces out at all, which is why I started doing a lot of clean versions of the House of Bob pictures, right? But
mm,
when they started going after my bikini girls,
that
it's
was
like
a bit much.
that was it. I was like going, okay, I'm on someone's list now. It's like, because I made the changes that they want, and it's like, oh, no, the bikini girls got to go too. And it's like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm
Okay, well
gonna
then I
go.
gotta go. Bye,
Yeah, that's
peace.
exactly what happened, because it's like, you know what? If you're going to be this, yeah, all over the place with your restrictions, I can't function under that.
Good morning, everyone. It is April 22nd, 2024, and this is the Rage into the Vlogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn, April. I mean, we're almost at the end of April already. I can't stand this. This year is flying. But didn't we say the same thing last year too?
It's an age thing, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It is an age
Fuck.
thing. Yeah.
You ready for this?
Absolutely not. But hit it.
Oh, good morning, Daphne.
Oh, good morning, Nita. Good morning. So how was your trip? So you went on a little mini vacation, I guess,
Yeah, okay, so we went
which is
to
why we
Tickfaw
didn't have a
State
show.
Park.
Right. Oh, which part?
And Tickfaw State Park in Louisiana.
Uh-huh.
It's been hit by and battered pretty hard by a few storms recently, so the amount of people actually going out there has diminished or declined
Right.
greatly over the past couple of years, which has given the wild time to reaccumulate apart nearby the campsites and
Right.
stuff, which was cool and freaky as fuck. You couldn't fish without like every time you catch a fish, a fucking alligator's like, "Oh no, that's mine, bitch."
Oh
Like
no.
not one made it out of the water and up the bridge. It was
Wow.
insane.
So
They
so
were everywhere,
you spent the weekend feeding alligators.
pretty much. Yeah, feeding alligators and mosquitoes. Like it's like what
Oh,
you catch.
ew.
Probably West
No.
Nile. We'll find out soon.
All right. Yeah, it's like,
Um,
yeah, no, that's why I can't I remember I went out to the Everglades with my sister because every time she comes to Florida, every time she goes anywhere, she has to visit a national park. So we went to the Everglades. Good morning, Joseph. And oh yeah, I forgot to ask. Look at that. We're gone for a couple of days, and I
That's
forget
cool.
I forget to welcome everybody in the chat. But I'll get to you guys in a minute. So so we went to the Everglades, and my sister has no problem with this stuff, but me, it's like I don't know whether it's like I'm just allergic to mosquito bites, or I'm just very dramatic about it. But it's like I had to so I wore like this bright yellow raincoat, and I squeezed, it's like, and I closed up as much as I could so I looked like fucking Kenny.
Oh my god.
In this yellow raincoat. And oh my god, it was like I was sweating the entire time, right? But it was just like, because I had to keep the mosquitoes off of me, and we had some spray and stuff. But I was like walking around my sister's like taking photos, she's setting up things, she's like, and I'm in the background like this.
I think some of them like DEET. I'm not even kidding. I think DEET,
Right.
like the tiger mosquitoes, dig that shit.
Right.
Those big black and white striped ones, they were like, oh yeah, this ain't nothing. And look, you knew it was going to be bad is the second you pull into the park, you come down this gravel road through a residential area, and then they have the check-in, and then you take a left onto the first road into the park. And as soon as we'd made that turn, we noticed the mosquitoes swarm in the car. It's like they recognize vehicles as a feeding trap.
Oh no, probably.
It was like, oh, this is going to be weird.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. No. It's so obviously we have a whole bunch of people in the chat. We had Joseph. We had Ronan,
Max.
Hello, Brent. Hello, everybody. And yes, I see you, my beautiful eyeball people, watching us from regions beyond. If you are watching us from Facebook, if you're watching us from LinkedIn, come on over to YouTube. Join the sexy people in the chat. Hold on, I just accidentally closed off my stuff here. Because it's like, we know Facebook acts up, and we're still sussing out LinkedIn. So I don't know what we're doing with LinkedIn.
We're just there.
Right. Yeah.
We're just there.
So to get everything started, it's like, hello, everyone. My name is Daphne Lage, and I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I've been self-publishing comics since 1992, and you know what that means.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
And I am known for the furry fantasy adventure Tall Tales, which is on Kickstarter right now. Oh, I forgot to put a link in the show, in the chat. Okay. It's in well, I forgot to put it in the chat. So yes, it is on Kickstarter right now with a re-release of issues 1 through 5 and the brand new issue 6 for the new story arc Tears of the Mother. It's issue 6 of an 8-issue limited series. We have 10 days left on the campaign. Thank you, everybody who has pledged so far. So yes, and I am also known for my medieval fantasy drama Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, which returns to Kickstarter early summer with Volume 2, which collects issues 5 through 8 of this 15-issue series. So already we're on Volume 2. So in the meantime, you can read both my comics online at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS, and Tall Tales, that's TAILS online.com. And you can check out all my videos on how I make my comics here on YouTube at Daphne Lage, LAGE Art, which also simulcasts through the Indie Comics Network. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever any of our shows go live. And to tell you more about it, here's the alligator whisperer, Nita.
So my name is Nita Lanning, and I'm a writer, blogger, blah, blah, blah. And I have a YouTube channel off my Google account, and that's Indie Comics Network. And we try to bring you daily comic-centered stuff, and you can find that at indiecomicsnetwork.com.
Cut.
And yeah, there's just comics and stuff and drama and stuff and more stuff and whatever.
Right. Yeah. That's yeah. We try to, but we've tried to keep it comic centered, so and live streams and all that fun stuff. So my goodness. So yeah, so I don't know. It's like I have like a jumble of thoughts today. I have such jumble.
Those are the best shows. Let's run through all of them.
Oh my goodness. So the other day I watched a YouTube video where they were talking about how fight scenes in most movies have pretty much homogenized into looking like the same thing over and over and over again. And to prove the point, the guy doing the video, he edited the fight scenes of, I don't know, of maybe like 20 movies. And he did it in such a way where if you weren't paying attention, you would thought it was one giant fight scene. Like it was like
That's
one
funny.
scene, because that's how, like, that's kind of like to prove the sameness of the choreography in a lot of these movies. Although some of these movies were actually really good, but that kind of wasn't his point at this moment. He was just like, okay, why is there a difference? Why is there a sameness to fight scenes nowadays in movies? And he was saying that, which tracked, because I remember discussing this with Jose when it first came out. It started with the first Jason Bourne movie. And I remember when we saw it in the theater, and I remember talking to Jose about it. It's like, wow, it's like the fighting is really different in here, because before, up until that point, there was like a lot of emphasis in wire fu type of choreography, everybody kung fu fighting,
right?
And regardless of context, which kind of was the annoying part. And that Jason Bourne movie was probably the first time that I saw something that I couldn't describe as anything else but kind of like a very American fighting style. I couldn't describe it as anything else, right? But in the end, it turned out to be probably like the beginnings of seeing like mixed martial arts in movies, like like a lot of jujitsu, and it just felt different. It literally hit different. It just felt really different, and it felt like because like wire fu, I'm so used to seeing it in like kung fu movies where the body type, it's a type of fighting style that fits the body types of the actors. We're talking about more like lithe actors. They're taller, they're skinnier, right? So it never looked right when kind of like an American actor was doing them. It's like, we're talking about like hulkier, beefier characters. It's like it never made sense for them to be doing some wire fu shit, right? Right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not talking about like Dolph Lundgren type, it's like, because he, I just something, it's like, it's just Jason Bourne was different. Right. So it turns out that most of the choreography done in movies today, which started with Jason Bourne, is done by two guys. And with Jason Bourne, they pretty much revolutionized. Ronan says Bourne Identity was choreographed by Jeff Imada, who's a legit martial artist, second generation Jeet Kune Do student, and all around BAMF. I don't know what BAMF means.
Badass motherfucker.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I've been seeing
okay, boomer.
Yeah, exactly. Like it takes me a while sometimes to catch up with the lingo. So there's these two guys, and so it seems like that they've pretty much they revolutionized fight choreography, and they've been pretty much dominating the industry ever since. Pretty much every movie that you see now has these two guys working on it as what they call fight like they're scene visualizers or something.
It's choreography.
No, but
it's dance choreography
term that he used, because it's outside of the choreography, because what the video was explaining is that what they really are second camera. They're like a second camera crew. Again, I'm completely forgetting all the technical terms right now. So they're kind of like a second let's see. Well, yeah, but that's acting in general. Second unit. Yes, thank you, Ronan. Yes, second unit. They're second unit filmographers, I guess. And so the thing that was being posited in the video is that how is it if these guys are doing the same choreography in pretty much every action movie that comes out, right? They're
Right.
why is it that some movies are just absolutely riveting and then some movies are just so fucking boring once you get to the fight scenes, even though it's the same people doing it, right? So he told the story about how Disney had tried to hire this director to do Black Widow. And they had told her that it's like, yeah, we're going to hire you to do, we want to hire you to direct Black Widow, but you don't have to worry about the fight scenes. Right now, mind you, this is before the movie pretty much had a script. This is before everything.
Right.
And the studio was already telling her, we have the fight scenes already pre-visualized. Like they already had this company that they've already like pretty much made the fight scenes already. And it was her job. And what she was expected to do is to direct to the fight scenes. And she quit right there.
Huh.
She said, oh, really? It's like, and then she quit. She goes, you know what? You can make this movie on your own. And so it seems like that's kind of the trend now, that especially, I guess, with the Marvel movies, I mean, I'm sure that there are other studios that do this as well, where it's like they come up with the movie and then they pre-visualize the fight scenes, and then the directing and the story is built around those fight scenes.
Right.
But how is it that we get movies that are absolutely beloved, like Jason Bourne, like John Wick? It's like, especially John Wick, where everybody is fucking riveted watching almost like a 30-minute fight scene on a set of stairs. So what he was saying, so pretty much what it all boiled down to is that the reason why some movies work and some don't, even with the exact same the exact same fight scenes, is, drum roll, storytelling.
Of course.
Yes. So the movies where the fight scenes are in service of the story comes first and builds up to the fight scene. The fight scenes come off as a lot more exciting because there feels like a real payoff for the fight scenes, right? Where with other movies, it's the reverse. The story is in service of the fight scene. So the story is just there to get you to the fight scene. So those movies tend to be a little bit more like, even though it's the exact same choreography, you don't have that sense of emotional payoff.
Right.
Because the story didn't really earn the fight scene as he was explaining it. And even though it's the exact same thing, the exact same fight scene, because the same guy's doing the choreography for everything. But in the end, it all boiled down to the story. Is the fight scene a payoff? Or is it just the story's just a drudgery you have to get through to get to the fight scene?
Right.
Now, this reminded me of a book that I just recently not finished.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I recently DNF'd a book. DNF means did not finish, which is funny because it's also a very common term in running circles as well. It just means you didn't finish the race. Um, and it's a fantasy book. I had every intentions of enjoying this book, every intention. Um, did I get it because it was supposed to be specifically spicy? Yes, I did. Look, I'm in my romantic smut era. Yeah, I'm in my smut era. So those are just the type of books that I was reading, that I wanted to read. I had every intention of liking this book. Holy shit! Talk about a slog. It was such a slog. I had to get my mind off of it in the middle of it by reading something so completely different. I read a book called Tender is the Flesh. And that is a book that kind of has you mix 1984, The Handmaid's Tale, and The Road. For life. Smut for life. So it's like that's how different this book was. It was 1984, The Handmaid's Tale, and The Road in one book. If you want to get vibes, that's Tender is the Flesh, right? With a heavy dose of cannibalism, right? And I read that book in 2 days. I couldn't stop reading that book, right? So that's how I knew it wasn't me. Right. Because I was going, oh, am I bored or this, that, and the other thing? And it's like, well, yeah, but it wasn't, but it was the book. There was something about that particular book that was not resonating, so I read this other book in 2 days. Fabulous book. Tender is the Flesh. It is not a feel-good book. It is absolutely not a feel-good book. It's cannibalism dystopia. That's all I can describe it as. So I went back to this fantasy book. I figured, okay, maybe I got talk about a palate cleanser, right? Something completely opposite. So I went back to the other book, and again, it was such a slog. And then it's like I gave myself one rule. Okay, let me get to the first sex scene. In the end, that's the part that, it's like I'm really curious about. Let's get to the sex scene and see where it goes from there. Holy shit. It was tough. It was tough, but luckily the sex scene popped up a little after midway. And all I can say is that by itself, it was an okay scene. But the absolute boredom that I had to go through to get to it made it not worth it. And it was pretty much soon after that I decided, it's like, you know what? Jose is right. If I don't like the book, I should just stop reading it and move on. So that's what I did. So it's like, you know what? It got to a point where I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about anything. And it's like, okay, you know what? I'm not clicking with this book. This book is not clicking with me. I'm going to just put it aside. That's it. Luckily it's a digital file, so I could just forget about it. It's not like I have it on my shelf to always remember me. Hello. So when no, I like to earn my it's like, look,
it's like, like to earn your cock.
I do. I really do. It's kind of like it's the journey and the friends we make along the way. So when I saw this video about fight choreography, right, and he explained it like that, that's when that was the problem I had with the book, because I was going back and forth with Jose. I don't know why
I was dialogue to get you to the fuck scene.
It's like I just didn't know what was it with this book that wasn't clicking, why I didn't like it. And then I saw this video. And the problem is, so then it's like, it kind of like, oh, that's probably what happened. The story just wasn't strong enough for me. Right. To justify the journey. So by the time I got to what I wanted to read, it was kind of like lackluster. So it's the same thing with these movies. When the story is very thin on the ground, when you actually get to the fight scene, it's boring because it's not a payoff. There is no payoff to it. And then it's like, I started realizing that there were certain parts of the certain things in the story that that I was really having a problem with. Honestly, I knew I didn't like the story with about 10 pages. But I felt very uncomfortable at the idea of not finishing. So that's why I pushed through. But in the end, it wasn't worth the effort. I wasn't doing me any favors and I wasn't doing the author any favors. It's like, look, if I have to force myself through, it's like, you know what? It's better for me to just not read a book than to actually say I had to force myself. Like, this isn't high school. We're not in high school. This isn't some like, stupid, you got to read Jane Eyre shit, Wuthering Heights. Oh, I hated those books. It's like, no, it's like, you know what? Nobody's forcing me to read these books. So then it started. And then of course, my ADHD rattled brain, we start going through that rabbit hole. And then I remembered a conversation that I had with Jose, because he reads a lot of books. Yeah, Grant says, I feel like I have to finish. Oh, yeah, I felt like that with 50 Shades, was not impressed.
So did 50% of the women that read it.
Yeah, So, Jose reads a lot of books. He reads a lot of books. He reads a lot of comics. I don't think that there's a comic that comes through the house pretty much where he doesn't eventually read. Or maybe there is. Yeah, there's some books that I could tell that it's like, no, I'm not reading that. So, and he does it, So I was asking him, so of all the comics, especially relating it to indie comics specifically, right? Because, he goes that whenever he reads, like, cause I asked him, like, you read a lot of shitty books? And he goes, no, because there's no reason for me to read shitty books. It's like, because it's like, if he buys a book, it's because it's all like, especially from a professional creator, like there's a certain expectation he has with those books. So there's no reason for him to purposefully read shitty books. It's like, has he read shitty books? Yes. But if they're coming from a professional, it's very surprising, because he goes, I was not expecting a shitty book out of you.
Right.
But it's a little different when he reads indie books, because that's where it kind of gets a little harder to avoid pretty much the whole 95% of everything is crap. It's very hard. It's a much harder to avoid that. So, without getting into specifics, because in the end, there's no real reason to point fingers directly at anybody, because in the end, it's like, what I like to talk about is something that we could all look at our own stuff and like, okay, does this fit what I'm doing? It's like, does this sound like something that I'm doing? Is this something I can fix? Right? It's the whole thing with the whole drama. I don't like doing drama, but I do like to talk about behavior, because in the end, we could all be guilty about certain behaviors we need to keep an eye on, and all pointing an actual finger does is distract people from the work that they need to do on themselves. It's like, well, I'm not that person, so that's not me. And it's like, well, the behavior is, type of thing. So I had asked Jose, like, okay, like, what would you say of like constitutes like a bad comic, right? And what's funny is that one of the examples he gives me, we all have room to grow. Yes, we do, Jose. And like one of the books that he was explaining using this was I think like a professional book. I forgot. I think it was a Terry Dodson book. I don't remember. artwork was beautiful. The story could use some help. Let's just say
Right.
that, right? Which goes to show you that if a professional can make these mistakes, we can definitely make them. So no one is immune from this, right?
Right.
So the first thing, which I think is my issue with the novel that I read, that this recent novel, this fantasy novel that I read. Number one, straight off the bat, you don't care about the characters.
Mm.
And I really do think that was something, like, for some reason in this novel, 10 pages in, and I really had no interest in the main character. And and it was just like, okay, so that in and of itself is like a main flag to watch out for, right? You don't, he's reading a comic and the comic gives him no reason to care for the characters, right? So, like the example that he was giving, right? That he was kind of giving was, now the thing is, though, a lot of the, because his interest is, kind of like superheroes or something, or variations thereof, right? So he was talking about that he sees this a lot in superhero comics, indie superhero comics, where the character is just there. Here's my Batman, but different, right? Here's my X-Men, but different, right? And you're supposed to just care about the characters because the writer said so. This is my cool character, and he's cool because I said he's cool, right? So I guess that's kind of like a part of it, right? So they don't really give you a reason. They think that, oh, if you're familiar with the superhero genre, here's my superhero character, so you should automatically attach to the character, when that's not the case. So to kind of illustrate the point, Hosea goes, oh, did I tell you my Joe Quesada story that I heard? And I go, no, I don't think I heard this story. So it's a story about Joe Quesada having a conversation with Stan Lee. And even Joe Quesada said that he was kind of being a smartass when he had this conversation with Stan Lee. He was just being a dick, essentially. Joe Quesada was being a dick to Stan Lee at that moment. And he asked Stan Lee, what makes a great superhero character? What's the formula, right?
Right.
And then Stan Lee was saying, it's like, okay, picture this, right? You see Spider-Man, right? He's standing on, I'm very much paraphrasing this. It's not the exact story. I'm very much paraphrasing this. Spider-Man is standing on a ledge. It's dark out. It's raining, right? It's like there's it's like the gloomy atmosphere, whatnot. You just see, and Spider-Man just looks ahead to the darkness ahead of him. And then it's like he casts out his web, right, into the darkness. And then he jumps off the ledge into, and he goes, what is that? It's like, how does that, it's like, what does that, scene tell you? What does that scene tell you? And Joe Quesada goes like, oh, that's a really cool scene. That this is a really good superhero. Like, this is a good superhero. He goes, no, it's not. So Stan Lee goes, no, it's not. This doesn't say anything about the character. You know what makes a good superhero a good superhero? What makes Spider-Man a good superhero is the fact that he was bullied in school. The fact that that he has a problem getting the girl. That he has an aunt and uncle that loves him. The fact that, he has a boss that's up his ass all the time. Whatever, right? So, that's what makes Spider-Man a good superhero, not the standing on top of, like buildings bullshit. That's bullshit. What makes Spider-Man a good superhero is his story that leads to Spider-Man, that leads to him being Spider-Man, that makes him. It's his story that makes Spider-Man. So, of course, Joe Quesada realized that it's like he just got completely told by Stan Lee. And he learned, and that was, and that was the thing. It's like, you can have all the cool, you can say this character is cool, but if you don't give me a reason, again, to like, well, how did he earn his coolness, right? What was his story? If you don't give me that, then why should I care if he's cool? Right?
Right.
So that was kind of the thing that's like, oh yeah, it's like the novel wanted me to care about this character without really giving me a reason to care about this character. And I just couldn't connect to the character at all. Like, I thought he was kind of like a mouthy, kind of like unnecessarily mouthy, and it's like, and it's just like, it just didn't, I just didn't get a sense of any real character from the character for me to care that he's going on this journey, right?
Right.
So Jose was saying that this is kind of like the same thing that he sees in comics, like what makes, it's like, what makes a bad comic? And it's like, well, one off the bat, you're not making me care about your character, right? And then number 2, and he says that this is especially in superhero comics, and he says that this is a trap that a lot of creators fall into, is that the use of already overused tropes. The one that he was talking about was, it's like, oh, here's this superhero team, which, remember, the writer has already said these are his cool characters, right? And the X-Men, but different, they're doing, they're doing an open call because, I don't know, they need more members for some reason, right? So then it's like, it just serves as a device to introduce more characters, or something, right? It's like the X-Men's hiring, and these are all the new characters. So, and he was saying, it's like, again, it's like you're introducing more characters. It's like, again, why should I care about these characters? And another thing that he had said, and then it's like, so another thing that he had said, that he says that he sees that these creators try to make up, is they're telling when they should be showing, and showing where they should be telling. So it's like, okay, this my cool character here, you're supposed to care about him because his, it's like, oh, some bad guy killed his wife and family, and now he's out for revenge and shit, or something. Like, that's his backstory, but you never get a sense of the backstory. It's just a little caption box, and they go on to do something else that has nothing to do with that, right? Or it's like, oh, here's my strong female superhero character. The bad guy killed her kids, and now she's seeking revenge. And it's like, move on from there. So very, very overused tropes that, again, tropes in and of itself is not such a bad thing, but it's when you don't have the skill to do anything different with them. And, and the thing is, and it's like, I guess, like, skill really is something that is important to something like this, especially when you're talking about, I guess we could safely say, is a very oversaturated market. I mean, Jesus, if you think werewolves is saturated, superheroes is oversaturated, right? So if you're going to do a superhero comic, you really need to have the skill to bring something to that story that makes it different from what everybody else is doing. You're all using the same tropes. You're all using the same characters, essentially. But what makes yours different? And you kind of have to have a skill to be able to work something with that, and then, and it's like, and like you said, it's like, so you're telling where you should be showing. So you're telling me he's a hero without showing when you should be showing me why he's a hero. Right. And not all information is equal. Sometimes you really could just say, just say something in a little box, and that should be it. Like, I really don't need to, you know, to get any more information than that. I don't have an example off the top of my head as to what, you know, you could just say, right? And then not only that, right? So he goes like, the other thing that he says makes a bad comic is very flat dialogue. So what that means is that the characters all talk the same way.
Right.
Well, they all speak the same way. There is no, like, dialogue is where a lot of the personality comes through in the character. Talking, you know, it's like, it's how they're speaking where you kind of get a sense of who this character is.
Right.
Like when I'm editing, when I'm typing out my characters in when I'm typing out a story in Word, right? It's like, so for those of you who are familiar with Eager Raven, I have Eager Raven, and then I have, like, say, my Fox character, Morgan. Morgan speaks in a very informal way, as you know, a very different, kind of different from Eager Raven. So when Morgan is speaking, I want to get that sense of kind of, you know, of like, there's a lot more casualness in his speaking pattern. And the way Word hates it, the way Word keeps trying to get me to formalize his speech, like, no word, bad Grammarly. You're not, you know, it's like, this is not the context of the dialogue. Because just as much character is being featured in the dialogue as it is in my descriptions. So the way Morgan speaks is always going to be different than the way Eager Raven speaks, and then you have a character like Johar or Yohar. I've heard somebody actually pronounce it Yohar, and now it's like, I go, wait, no, that is the correct way to say his name. It's Yohar. He speaks a lot more formally than Eager Raven. And then it's like, you have Daniel, that's kind of like, his speaking pattern is kind of like like in between Eager Raven and Morgan. Like, it's casual, but it's still kind of proper. But he has like certain inflections that it's like that, especially because he's kind of like more of a laid back character. So he, you know, so I reflect that in the dialogue. So your characterization is going to also reflect in the dialogue. Like, there was this one scene that I put in, and I decided to challenge myself by having a character that has a very heavy accent. But I didn't want the dialogue to be unreadable. So I had to find that fine line between the character having kind of like, I don't know, like a Cockney accent, like just like, it's very like rural, rustic, very shorthand. But at the same time, I still want my reader to know what he's saying.
Right.
You know, so that was a challenging Word and Grammarly hated that scene too. You know, but again, it's like, you're using your dialogue to showcase to showcase your character's character. So he says that when he reads a book and all the dialogue is the same, he goes, yeah, that's bad storytelling. That's bad characterization, because your dialogue is supposed to serve that purpose. And then and of course, it's like, I guess it's the same thing with this novel. So the last thing Jose had said that really tells him that he's reading a bad book is the inability to hook the reader within 5 pages. So when it comes to when it comes to reading a comic, it's not like reading a novel. Well, but then again, that's kind of what happened. So I was reading this novel, and all I remember was there 10 pages in, 20 pages in, and I was not feeling it at all. Like, which is weird, because the story literally starts, the first line of the book is the character describing what it feels like to have a dagger at his throat. right? You would think that that would be, oh, what's going on here? What's going on here? But it wasn't enough. It really wasn't enough. I kind of had to force myself through that first page. And I think that looking back on it now, I think that part of the problem was that, you see, there's a trope in romance fantasy where the main character kind of has to be a mouthy bitch. Where it's kind of like, oh, it's like they're spunky, kind of thing. And that's a trope I'm finding I really, really don't like, because I don't know. That's kind of, Jose says for a comic it should be 5 to 10 pages. Right. You give a novel 100 pages.
No.
Oh, yeah.
25.
Jose gives a novel 100 pages to give, and especially it's like a lot of the books that I've been reading are like 500-600 pages. So
that's too much time invested.
So the character, but the thing is, though, with this book, I knew from like the first couple of pages, I was like, oh, I regret my decision. It's like, I don't know if I can commit to this book, but I tried. So there's this trope where it's like the main character kind of has to be like this mouthy asshole, and it's like, not an asshole, but just like mouthy, kind of like it's supposed to show like, oh, I'm a strong character, I don't take shit from nobody, type of thing. How dare you? It's kind of like that. And it's like, I'm beginning to realize I don't like that trope at all. And especially in this book, I don't know. It's just like, because because I didn't feel, because in the end it's like, because in real life, I guess people kind of get punished for that. Particular people get punished for that type of behavior. It's like, oh, you're gonna be a mouthy bitch to me, type of thing. It's like, what is it, Nita? Couldn't be you. So to see characters act like that in a book openly and
without consequence,
without kind of like, there comes a point where, look, I understand that fantasy is supposed to be fantasy, right? But there are just certain things that if it doesn't kind of fit a certain, I don't know, an internal belief system that I have, because that's also the thing with writing too, right? Verisimilitude, right? That you can have your setup, your world setup has to be convincing to your world in order for me to accept the rules of your world. So you have to be pretty consistent with the rules of your world so that it's realistic enough that behavior that in real world would be like nobody acts like that is normal, is normal in the story, right? But there are just certain things that that I don't know, like if the story can't overcome an internalized issue, like an internalized rule that I have, then probably I'm going to have a hard time connecting to that character.
Well, you have to have that air.
Yeah, it's like if I so if I have a certain internalized belief that mouthy people can't really get away with being that mouthy, I'm going to, unless you kind of have an explanation for that in your book, I'm going to have a problem overcoming that trope. So it's like, oh, you're being, it's like, here's like,
it took years of consequences to be able to be this mouthy and get away with it.
Right, exactly. So it's like, you're telling me that this character is being this mouthy to a captain of the guard and not getting smacked. Yeah, C. Michael goes, you can't ask, what was that? You can't ask your audience to extend their suspension of disbelief too far. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it's like, if your rules, there's certain, that's why I guess some fantasy works and some fantasy don't. I mean, look, I just read a book about government-sponsored institutional cannibalism, and that was more realistic to me than this elf guy being mouthy to a captain of the guard. So again, it's like, your rules have to be very clear.
But were the rules like this? He was mouthy to the captain of the guard, and he really
comes
hard
later
to put him in place.
That comes later.
It does come later, doesn't it?
But the thing is, though, but also the reason why that scene didn't feel satisfying was because I didn't feel the relationship earned it.
Right.
So going back to the fight scene, the fight scenes, right? The choreography, even though it was done by the same guys, even though the choreography was done by the same guys, depending on the movie, that same choreography will be incredibly boring because it feels unearned. Something happened in the story, or lack of story, because in the end, that's what it boils down to. Beneath everything, your story has to be strong enough to carry the cool scenes. You can't just, in the end, that's what it boils down to, right? You cannot write a story starting, well, technically you could, but you can't just, it's like the cool scenes are what's important. No, the cool scenes are the cool scenes. Now, are you prioritizing the cool scenes above everything else? Or are the cool scenes a payoff? How are your cool scenes a payoff from, of the story itself? So that's kind of like how, like, so watching this video kind of like really made me think about, wow, everything really is about the story. If you don't have a good story or a strong enough story, it doesn't matter how many cool scenes you have.
Unpopular opinion, that's how I feel about Ninja Kaiju right now. Like,
what's that?
Beautifully animated. It's a fucking anime. Beautiful animation. The first fucking episode had good story, but now it's just like, what can we say till we get to the next fight scene? And while the fight scenes are beautiful and it's fantastic looking, I completely lost interest.
Right.
Like, because C and I looked at each other about the same time. It's like, are we done? And we were like, yep. Turned it off, rolled over, went to sleep.
Yeah, it's like, even if you have something like say if you have something like fan service, it's like, does the fan service feel like a payoff? Like anime during the 80s, again, another thing that hit really different, right? Especially when there's all this discussion about like there's a fine line between sexy and sexism, right? Not getting too much into detail with this, but anime in the 80s were infamous for fan service scenes. The whole ubiquitous shower scene, right? You watch Bubblegum Crisis and everyone needs to take a shower after a fight scene, right? But the funny thing is that, like, it didn't, like, like you take something like Ixer 1, where it's like, it's literally a plot point that the robots have to be piloted by a naked girl in the belly. I mean, she's the energy source. I guess, what is it? Nagisa's the energy source, and Ixer is piloting but Nagisa's the one that had to be naked. But it didn't feel weird. You know what I mean? like I don't know, like I guess it's because it wasn't like that what like it just happened to be there. Like it kind of like again, it was like, oh, you got your fan service, Pris is
Right.
taking a shower after, kicking some boomer ass. And and it didn't feel like out of place. Like it didn't feel like it was shoehorned. Like, of course, it was like they knew they needed the scene in here,
Right.
but there seemed to be enough of a context
It was
that when
written
you
in.
got
It
to
wasn't
it,
just slapped on like a sticker.
right, it's which I think is also the reason why like a lot of like bad girl TNA books, like very few of them actually resonate with me. Because it's just like the story. Oh, it's like they weren't drawing special attention to it, and the nudity made sense. So right, so you didn't think about it, or at least I didn't. Also, Ronan says I also think your fight scenes need to be telling a story within itself.
Yes.
Exactly. Go back. How they move, how they choose to fight, weapon choice, creativity, tactics. Like take something like John Wick, right? Every character had a different way of fighting, and the fighting told a different story of that character. It's like, yeah, we were watching a 30-minute fight scene up the fucking stairs, right? But every opponent had something different to tell in that moment, had something different to say in that moment. So it made it very compelling. So yes, the fight scene has to tell the story. And that was also I think, that was also I think too, that what they meant. Like in Marvel's case, in Disney's case, the fight scenes were just the cool scenes they wanted the story to get to. So they said that that's also a reason why sometimes you watch an action movie and the fight scenes kind of feel like they came out of nowhere, like they don't feel connected to the rest of the movie. And this is why, because they were filmed first. They were filmed before even there was a director, so it's the same thing with everything that happens in your book, whether it be a fight scene, whether it be your cool scenes or your cool characters, whether it's like the whole point is that you have your main character running around in a bikini, flashing her panties at everybody. It's like a lot of underskirt shots or whatnot, whatever the fuck you want to do. Is all these things, doesn't matter how ridiculous it is, are all of these things in the service of the story? Does it make sense in the rules that you have in your world that these things are happening? Whether it's an upskirt shot or whether it's a fight scene or whether it's a shower scene or whether it's, it in the end, it's like, does it serve the story, or what story are you telling? And I'm not talking about in the service to the plot. I think that that's actually a different conversation. I think that a lot of people kind of confuse storytelling with plot.
Right.
I don't think something necessarily has to be significant to the plot if it tells a story. Because it's like I think that there are like certain character things that you can show, like something like as simple as a character that likes cooking.
Right.
And they put a lot of like any Ghibli film, right?
Okay.
Any Miyazaki film. There's always this entire fucking scene of characters eating, right?
Yeah.
Is it related to the plot whatsoever? Do we really need to
No,
see
but
the
it was
characters
fucking
eating?
cool watching Calcifer cook that breakfast, okay?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and the way that
Sophie cooking it,
breakfast
Calcifer
was
bitching it.
lovingly animated.
Right.
I mean, I think like it's like Miyazaki films make you hungry, type of thing. Let's have, it's like when they're making, like in Ponyo, right? There's an entire scene where they're just making fucking ramen.
Oh yeah, right.
Now I want ramen too, and I don't have ramen in the house, so we're gonna have to fix that.
Ramen and egg.
Right. It's not like you could have cut that scene out, and it wouldn't have made a difference to the plot. But that's not the point, right?
But people bond over food, so there's
Right.
this like moment,
Right, exactly. It's kind of like when people complain about, oh, why does the sex scene have to be there? Well, why does the food scene need to be there? I mean, granted, if the story, if the scenes are not telling anything about the story or the characters, yeah, maybe you have a point. But Ponyo and I forgot the kid's name, and his family making the ramen together is a significant scene, even though it has nothing to do with the plot. Same thing with Howl's Moving Castle. There's literally a scene where they're making breakfast. Did it need to be there? Right. It's like, yeah, it gives a sense of tone, and it tells something about the characters too. That they're relishing this moment together.
Right.
That these are the type of people that they are, that they're sharing a meal. It's like when you watch Lord of the Rings, right? The difference between seeing the orcs eating together and seeing the hobbits eating together.
Right.
We ain't got nothing but maggoty bread, that type of thing, right? Right. And then you have the hobbits where it's like, oh, we got the sausage and we got this, that, and the other thing. I mean, it's like Samwise, right? Samwise carries salt on him.
He does.
It literally becomes a thing that's pointed out. That little taste of home, right? Does it have anything to do with the plot? Does it have anything to do with throwing the ring into the fires of Mordor? No, it has nothing to do with that, right? So yeah, so it's like, so I think that what this whole conversation had me learning, right, had me realizing, right, is that when you sit down and write your story, you do your comic, right, is it just a bunch of cool scenes that are only cool to you, strung together with the thinnest thread of story, right? Or do these scenes actually mean something to your story?
Right.
Does it portray anything about the characters? Does it portray anything about the world? Does it say anything about, or it's like, and look, there's nothing. Look, and then it's like you have something that could be like outright pornography, and that could go with like fight scenes and sex scenes or whatever. It's like, you can have movies that are just fight scenes because that's just what you want to see.
Right.
It's like, honestly, we didn't go see Godzilla X Kong, Rise of an Empire for the dialogue. Yeah. Right. We did not go there for the story. We went there. There's just enough, the thinnest thread of story for us to see goddamn Godzilla, Kong, and Mothra go at it against whatever that bad guy ape was. That was just like absolutely amazing. It was an amazing movie. Honestly, that movie was kaiju porn, because look, we're just there for the cool scenes.
Right.
But not for nothing though. They actually were able to do a lot of cool things in those cool scenes. Right. Like there's an entire scene that's done entirely without dialogue.
But that's super fucking rare and should not
be. No, absolutely. Especially for a Godzilla movie. Godzilla Kong movie. So it's like, yeah, so there's a place for that. There's a place for that. If you just want to do a comic about two biker chicks who are like fighting in thong bikinis, but they have a gun, I mean, you can do that too. it just serves a completely different purpose, right?
Just make sure they
But
pull each other's hair.
well, usually it never gets that far. But that's another issue. That's a separate,
Mm.
But but the thing is though, if you really want to see longevity, if you want to see if you want to build an actual audience that enjoys your work for the long haul, right? I think that that's a distinction that we have to make. The story has to be there. The story has to be first and foremost, and everything that you do has to be in service to that story. Everything you put in a comic is a deliberate choice, has to be a deliberate choice. Because, yeah, it's like you don't have enough space in a comic to be frivolous. It sounds kind of weird. It sounds kind of weird. But it's like it's like you have 5 pages,
Right.
to make people want to care about your story. You have 5 pages. What are you doing in those 5 pages? What exactly are you showing me? What are you telling me? What is it about your characters that you need me to know in those 5 pages? And that requires a certain amount of skill, I think, to be able to, which is why, comics can be very trope focused, right? Because we don't have that much space to work with. But what can you do with that trope? What can you do that, again, it's like you have a Batman but different, right?
Mm.
Right? You have a Batman but different. What are you doing with that? Right? And then the ironic thing about it is that one of Jose's books that he actually enjoys, that he has, is literally a Batman but different book. It's like this book is so Batman but different. I'm surprised the team the creator didn't get a cease and desist from DC. It's a book about a mouse it's Batman, but if he was a mouse.
Oh, that's funny.
So it's like, but he says that it's a really good book. I mean, talk about a Batman. I mean, it's like sometimes I say that Batman, but different, kind of in a derogatory way. But here's an example of a book that literally did that and made a book that Jose says that's a good book. I forgot what it's called, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of easy to find. It's like Mouse of Night or something. I don't know. It's something. It's literally Batman, but it's a mouse. So I think that proves that just because you're using a trope doesn't mean that it's hopeless. Oh, everybody uses this, right? Because look, I like to say that it's like, look, in the end, it's like nobody can do your story like you do. But you still have to kind of have the skill to tell it in a way that you can stand out from everybody else doing that same thing. That's why in the end, I never complain if there's another werewolf comic, because I don't care. I like those things. The difference is that, okay, what are you doing that's different that I can enjoy this than the other ones? Like, it's the same thing with this fantasy book, right? I like fantasy books. So I wasn't expecting this book to be this way. Look, it had all the tropes, but there was just something about it that didn't click.
There.
Yeah, the execution wasn't there for me. Like, it didn't click with me at all. Like, I found it very boring, and it wasn't, and I don't know, like, I think, you know what? I can't even pinpoint what exactly had to be different for me to like going, okay, now you can make, it's kind of like it's easier with artwork where it's like you're looking at a piece of artwork and it's like, oh, well, if you kind of move this or you did this, or maybe if you change the color here, it would make a more cohesive piece. But with writing, it's very difficult because also I think with writing, because of the abstract nature of the medium, we literally have to imagine everything that's on the page, right? So what words would I have to change? Like, how would I change the writing? Like, is it the writing style? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how to pinpoint that. All I know is that, well, I know that the writing itself bored me. I didn't care for the main character. And the relationship that got built between the main character and this captain of the guard didn't resonate. I didn't feel it didn't feel convincing to me enough for the payoff, to be worth it. And then it especially wasn't worth it for me to know how the book ended. Because there just came a point where it's like, you know what? If I don't care at this point, why would I care about the ending? And once I asked myself that question, that's when I stopped reading the book. If I don't care about the ending, if I don't care about what I'm reading now, why does the ending matter? And it didn't. So I stopped reading it, and that was it. I mean, so the trick is to make sure that when we're creating our books, when we're thinking of our stories, is what we're doing in the service of the story. Because without the story, it's like what? It's like you're essentially just, okay, maybe you can build an audience on that, but they're not going to stay. They're not going to stay. You're creating a very fickle audience. If like, so that's kind of like what you have to, to decide, I guess, as a creator, is like, what's your foundation? Do you want people to care and stay because they care? They want to know what happens in the next issue? Or do you have just enough story to string along each panty shot, and then you're selling just a variant cover anyway? You're selling it on the basis of a variant cover. So, you just this, you might as well have blank pages with a Shikari cover, and people will still buy it. And if that's the case, it's like, why are you even doing this anyway? Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, and if
there's 28 blank pages,
right? Well, if they're only buying it for the cover anyway, then what's your role in this? What are you doing? Because in the end, you're just hitching your wagon to somebody else's popularity that you technically had nothing to do with. So, so it's like, if, now mind you, it's like people who say, oh, nobody reads my comic anyway, they just buy it for the variant covers, or I sell more shot glasses than comics. Like, then what are you doing? Then what's your contribution?
Sell pinups and shot glasses.
Right. Yeah. It's like, okay. And there was one thing too that, again, I think this is another fine line leading into that thought, that thought. Probably we could make this a final thought, right? Where it's like, if storytelling doesn't mean anything to you, where all it is about just putting the thinnest line to cool thing to cool thing to cool thing, just to sell variant covers anyway, or shot glasses or whatever, right? there was something in a conversation that Jose had said that kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. That you made the decision to enter a marketplace that requires talent without you having any.
Oh.
So you need to depend on gimmicks to get by. So does whatever it is you put in your comic, is it in the service of the story? Because if it's not, it's just a gimmick. The fight scene in some Marvel movie that nobody gives a shit about, done by the same choreographers as John Wick, nobody gives a shit about. Because it's just a gimmick at that point, right? We can watch John Wick all day, We can. Atomic Blonde is another good one, which is the same guys too. Born Identity, all these movies, it's like, but then also it's like, are you making Godzilla versus Kong? Is your shit so cool that it exists just because it's that cool?
Right.
Right? Right? Because that happens too, right?
Right.
But honestly, it's like, so that's the thing. Are you telling a story or are you selling gimmicks? Right? Which foundation would you rather be standing on? I mean, and the ironic thing about Godzilla, right, is that you have Godzilla versus Kong, which is kaiju pornography, kaiju fight pornography. And then you have Godzilla Minus Zero, which everybody says is probably the greatest storytelling in a Godzilla movie you'll ever see. Right? So you can do both. You can have that. I'm not saying you can't have that. It's just understand what you're building your foundation on. And understand the limitations or what your responsibilities are for that foundation. Is it in the service of the story? Or are you selling gimmicks? And if you're selling gimmicks, what's your role in this? What exactly are you bringing to the table? Except being an art dealer, and you're essentially just being an art dealer at that point and selling shot glasses. So yeah, so that's kind of like one of the things that I was kind of ruminating on, especially after seeing that video about fight scenes. Because I mean, I guess it's just like I'm very acute, especially like writing novels now. I'm very acutely aware of storytelling. Yeah, and especially so. And then reading all these novels, and it's like, and seeing all the different ways people tell pretty much similar stories. Because it's fantasy, or especially fantasy, to just see the different ways. Jose had recommended that my next book should be Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. So I'm probably going to do that, especially after this one. And then I'll probably mix it up because I want to read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So kind of like,
good book.
I kind of, is it? Because I've never read it before. So, I mean, I enjoyed the Terry Gilliam movie. So, so I figured, let me finally read that book to see, like,
Have you ever read any Hunter S. Thompson?
No.
Oh, dude. Nah. Dude, that's my jam.
Right. Oh, okay. Because I feel like I said,
this is why that bitch is so weird.
Yeah. And it's like, because it's like, I'd like, so I like to, that when I started reading again for this, I gave myself the rule that I don't want to read the same author in a row, and I don't want to read the same type of book in a row. So yeah, so I figured that so after this kind of dud of a book, I figured, okay, let me make it up with Earthsea and then Fear and Loathing, and then kind of like move on from there, and then like, you know, and you know, and just like see what else pops up. So you know, just to keep it, you know, just to see, because I think it's important that you know, because you don't want to end up with brain rot, you know,
No.
where it's like that you just have like one type, you know, it's kind of like how people that they only read superhero comics, they will not read anything else, you know, and it's like that's kind of to your detriment, especially if you do consider yourself a creator in this space, that it's like you really should be reading a whole bunch of different things. Um, you know, because it's just good for the brain, you know, it just in general. You
Right.
know? I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like, look, I'm not asking everybody to read like fucking Leo Tolstoy or something, you know, but it's like, you know, like I like to read The Great Gatsby every couple of years. You know, I like to read that. I like to read
Nobody
Animal
actually
Farm.
reads that book.
No, I do. I do. I love that book, Great Gatsby, you know. Um, you know, it's yeah, that's just one of those books that I don't know that really, really resonates with me. So it's like every couple of years I reread it. Um, you know, it's like, I don't know, just read different things, I guess. Like I
We have
said,
nostalgic moments. Like
yeah.
because like, dude, I'm totally rereading the draft.
Oh, yeah, that's yeah, right. You know,
Like
I've never read those.
one of my favorite stories ever in here, or descriptions of a dragon's nest is in there, and it's just fucking
Right.
awesome. So
Maybe I'll
yeah,
put that on my list. Maybe I'll put that on my list.
I mean it's
You know,
classic. You got to.
right. You
Yeah.
know, just
Do
again,
it.
it's like it's just to get a sense of all like the different writing styles
Right.
that are out there.
To me it's YA, but yeah, you know,
Right.
whatever.
Oh, is it? Is it
No,
considered YA?
no, I don't know if it is or not, but to me it just I don't know. It doesn't have some of the other stuff we like, you know, but
Right.
you know,
Right.
smut-free,
Yeah. Huh. You know,
like
so
deep
so yeah,
smut,
so I like to, you know, so I like to
deep smut. It's deep.
yes,
Yeah,
I like
that's
to
good.
keep it different.
It's missing the deep smut.
Oh, well, you know, I mean, it depends on the type of book. You know, it's like, look, it's like, you know, I joke about it. You know, I'm in my smut era, but it's like, look, it's like I like to read different types of books. You know, I really do. Like I said, I think it's important to not have brain rot over one thing. It's like I follow this paranormal and romance fantasy group where I mean, there's a lot of brain rot there. I mean, like these people that they just read like one thing and one thing only. You know, and I will and nobody recommends Sarah J. Maas to me. I refuse to read her books at this point. I refuse to read her books. I have I have a very deep suspicion of anything that's way too popular. So so yeah, so I won't read it. I won't read Fourth Wing. You know, it's like just give me the weird shit, you know, and Hunter S. Thompson. You know, I think I pretty much read most of Cormac McCarthy's library. I think no, I didn't read all the Pretty Horses. I still probably I'll put that on my list too. Um, you know, yeah, I haven't finished. I know there's a lot of books from like Chuck Palahniuk that I haven't read yet. I was in the middle of Damned. I should probably go back to reading that one. Haunted, I didn't read. And I know he has a couple of new books out too. I don't think Bret Easton Ellis has put out anything new, but I usually have to be in a very specific mood to read Bret Easton Ellis and like Gillian Flynn.
Hmm.
It's like yeah, because I read a couple of her books, and it's yeah that those yeah Bret Easton Ellis, Gillian Flynn, Palahniuk, and Cormac McCarthy. I have to be in a very very specific mood to read those books because they're very very dark nihilistic books. Not
Right.
so much Chuck Palahniuk, because for those who don't, you know, I'm butchering his last name. He wrote Fight Club. His books aren't nihilistic, but they're still very dark. I mean, Bret Easton is definitely nihilistic. Cormac, definitely nihilistic. Gillian Flynn, definitely. But yeah, Chuck is kind of borderline. He has a weird sense of hope in his books. Very strange sense of hope. But yeah, so avoid brain rot. Make sure everything that you do is in the service of the story, that it's telling something about something. It doesn't necessarily have to be to the plot. It just has to tell something about something. Suck your reader in, within 5 pages. Make me care about your characters. Write dialogue that tells just as much of the story, literally as well as figuratively. And I guess, and in the end, it's like, you know what? Just have fun doing it. Way too many people are acting like this is the most miserable job they could have, is making comics. And it's like, bro, it's like, if this shit makes you that unhappy, I don't know, go trade crypto or something. I mean, go work at Chipotle, go do something. Go outside. I don't know. I mean, yeah, too many people acting like this is miserable trudgery, to making comics. And it's like, bro, if you're not having fun at this, I really don't know what you're doing this for, because it ain't for the money, that's for sure.
It's for the money.
Yeah, no. It's like, okay, all right, for enough money that you can qualify for Medicaid. All right.
Damn.
Okay. All right. I don't know. So what do you think, Nita? What do you think?
I don't have any thoughts.
Yeah.
Read.
Right. Yeah. Go read. Read a book. Read a book. Touch grass and have fun making comics. I think that's a good place to end, right? I think so.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat today. I know it's kind of like a slow Monday, but it's like we're just getting back into the routine of things. Because it gets really easy to not do shows, and it's just But
I had to go touch grass because people was making me crazy.
And alligators.
Like that mouthy character, you were talking about was coming out strong. Needed a break.
All right, and I want to thank so much my beautiful eyeball people watching us from regions beyond. Thank you so much for watching. At least look, at worst you got some book recommendations. So I don't know, yeah, why not? So that's it for us. So I guess that's it. Yeah, so I think those are the new 3 rules, right? Which I completely forgot. You know what? If you're watching this on the replay, just rewind and you'll catch the 3 rules there. There you go. So,
make us interested. Keep us interested.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Have fun and whatever. So if you want to learn more about me and my artwork and everything else that I'm doing here, you can head on over to my main portfolio site at egoworks.com. That's EGOWORKS, where you can find links to all of my galleries and social media sites, but I mostly post to Facebook if you are interested in seeing sketches and current work in progress updates. And you can catch me here on YouTube for my entire archive of 500 plus videos on how I make my artwork, and for my semi-weekly art live streams Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. Most likely than not, I'll have a live stream on Wednesday. So we'll do that. It's 2 hours of me just drawing, working, and just talking with the chat, whatever you guys want to talk about. It's more of a conversational free-for-all on that channel. So on that show, on that live stream. So 4 p.m. Eastern, Wednesdays. Also, you can read Ego Raven, Air the First Unicorn, for free, uploading every day, Monday through Friday. But if you prefer your fantasy to be more of a furry Lord of the Rings adventure, you can follow the link over to Tall Tales. That's TAILSonline.com. And not only can you read the first 20 issues of Tall Tales for free, but you can catch up on the latest story arc for real. I just uploaded everything. Tears of the Mother Kickstarter, which is also currently uploading Mondays through Friday. So you can read the book for free. Well, at least read some of the first couple of issues for free. And then you can head on over to the Kickstarter, where we have 11 days left for a re-release of issues 1 through 5 and the brand new issue 6 of this 8-issue limited series. So so make sure the link, so make sure you check out the link in the show notes below for that. So thank you so much, everybody, again for joining us. I hope you had a good time. And in the words of the ancients, eat your food, moisturize, mind your business, and do the work. Because when you actually do the work, you never have to fake any of your accomplishments. Yes, it's work, but just like a good fight scene, it's worth it in the end if you do it correctly. So there you go. Thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, kids, you want to see some great comics? It's Comic Book Show and Tell twice a week. Comics by Night every Friday at 5 a.m. Eastern. And the Sunday Funnies every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Indie Comics Network YouTube channel.
Void where prohibited. Not available with any other offers. Side effects may include loss of boredom and a sudden urge to read more comics. Check with your doctor if a sudden rash appears.